Well, hello everybody. I'll give it that minute to let people log on. Tonight, 8 p.m., we're going to go through another round of the UN resolution as it is. But comments, recent comments, new followers, get new followers every day. And we're going to go through what I call the sovereigntists, people who believe that somehow they can throw away their Canadian identity and get sovereignty that way. Fortunately, that does not work. That's a myth, and you're only actually hurting yourself. Don't do anything for the government whatsoever. It's not going to stop them and their narrative. Also, because there's a lot of First Nations in that sovereignty too, and I understand it. I get where it comes from both the Canadians who subscribe to it and absolutely First Peoples. But we got to go through things as they really are, because saying something isn't so isn't going to make it not so when the government has full power to enforce it. They have and will. They've been doing that for hundreds of years in many narratives. I'm also here today to answer the question for all new First Peoples, whether that's Inuit, Métis, or treaty, or unceded, or claims outstanding, doesn't matter. The reality is the government has set aside so much land for First Nations and so much for the rest of all Canadians, which isn't very much at all. It doesn't belong to First Nations, unfortunately, and it certainly doesn't belong to Canadians. So who does all the land belong to? As we know, it's not Queen Elizabeth II. It's stated that way in the Constitution. However, world-binding laws, world treaties as they are, Queen Elizabeth is forbidden from taking any part in any administration of any lands foreign. She's restricted and very, very limited to the UK, and she has the face and image of colonialism and the Crown in those countries that have maintained that. Not very many left at all in this world. 16 to be exact. 22 total colonial countries, but only 16 remain, including UK, with the Crown, Queen Elizabeth II, as a visual representation. But I'm going to tell you all right now, and it's very clear in the Canadian Constitution, it's very clear in many acts, the Indian Act being one of them. We also have the NORAD overlap of treaties, international treaties when I say that covers the Inuit. That's a fact. Inuit has what they have, very limited. They have some outside powers of treaty Indians because of Russia and the USA. That's absolute. There's never been any Indian Act applied to the Inuit. Doesn't apply. NORAD and the Arctic Oceans Conference, it's held annually. The Arctic Oceans Conference covers the Inuit. In fact, Inuit's in it. Why? Because there's a state called Alaska, which puts USA as an Arctic Ocean member. And then you have Russia, the other major player of the Arctic Ocean, who also has Inuit. That is that. And there's not much I can do about that, but we can settle Canada's outstanding claims for all. As it stands right now, the reality is 8% for all First Peoples included. And they are governed under differences. Differences clear. Métis Nation in Alberta is the only organization settled in the province of Alberta where you hear the term provincial and federal crown land. Provincial powers meaning it's not Queen Elizabeth II, it's all your elected politicians who gain access. Provincial crown land means property of your elected provincial politicians. Federal crown land remains properties of your federal elected politicians. Now, Canadians, do you understand why the crown is so very, very important to the politicians. First Peoples, do you understand now what's going on here? What's been going on all along? Why you're targeted for genocide? Canadians, third class, as you are defined, absolutely in the unwritten law, customary law, inherited from the UK. Do you understand now why you are targeted by massive immigration, which is colonialism? Colonialism is defined as foreign persons brought to another land to replace the population that's there now. That's colonialism. Replaced by culture, laws, all of it. Notice how Canada's changing, everybody? It's not communism, it's colonialism, because that is your constitution. It always has been. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, 1982, and the amendment made to the 1867 Constitution, which is the power over all of Canada, meaning second, third-class Canadians, as well as all First Peoples. You're not listed in any respect in any constitution written in Canada, and the unwritten colonial laws, the small c that is the Crown governance of Canada, outlines a first-class citizen, and that's it. If you're not the first-class politician, you're nothing in this country. You're subject to. Now, the Charter mentions First Peoples and Canadians, gives you a pile of rights. However, the overriding document that's over and above the Charter of 1982, the rest of the Constitution, gives Crown power, first-class citizen power, to all the elected politicians who decide how your charter's to be administered. Absolutely. Now, the Constitution of 1867 gave civil rights to the provinces and territories, First Nations, First Peoples in your entirety, and all Canadians second and third class. This is the promise of where you're to find your civil rights. And to this day, since 1867, not a single premier entirely has ever written in any rules of governance in what we call Big C codification. I'll go backwards. Big C codification, because I know the camera's backwards. Big C codification. That's why I'm creating this party, to give you what's called Big C and the Little C. Right now, we're governed entirely under a Little C. Little C. There is little to no Big C constitutionalism. That means written laws, rules of governance, checks and balances, enshrining all your rights and giving the power to the people. There is none of that in Canada. Zero, zilch, nada. Little C constitutionalism, massive, greatly empowered by Crown power. That is your constitution. You have no civil rights. It's why an Indigenous genocide has been perpetuated since the dawn of Confederation. Since the dawn, and even before that. League of Nations ended. That was all outlawed absolutely by 1960. But Canada doesn't follow. One of only 22 countries, a very small minority of the world, that to this day gets away with absolute atrocities that Africa perpetuated under embedded colonialism, the same as Canada, the same as other nations. They've all been through the ICC. Many of them have been executed for perpetuating gross atrocities, to the likes of which Canada is currently experiencing and still perpetuating. You're not going to find a single legal expert or lawyer to come forward to put their bar and defend Canada in this grievous atrocity. You won't. They can't. They're all sworn to the Crown anyway, but they can't risk alienating themselves in the world and putting themselves out there. You'll never get a lawyer to ever talk about it. We're all sworn to the crown, and they go with the flow. This is Canada's entire system. Military, police, your lawyers, your judges, your absolute Senate, all appointed and elected politicians, as well as the absolute crown powers, Lieutenant Governor and Governor General. Everybody's sworn to absolutely the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister divides some of the powers, most of the powers, to the provinces, what we call the Little Crown. And each elected Premier gets absolute full autocracy in their division of powers. That's reality. This is an important video. It's been discussed many, many times. But I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to have to revisit this every now and then as more and more come on board and more followers come. That's how it works. You will never get any form of sovereignty. You will never get any kind of we the people in the system as it exists right now. It's built and structured to take away absolutely all your sovereignty. Now, for everybody born in Canada, First Peoples obviously, but a lot of what we call the old stock Canadian, you don't know that every single immigrant to Canada swears an oath to that crown and agrees to give away their sovereignty and gives away any ideal of any ideology, meaning whatever God they believe in is thrown to the side as they swear absolute divinity to the politicians. Through Her Majesty, they say Queen Elizabeth II. However, that's not legal in this world anymore. It hasn't been legal for the entire reign of Queen Elizabeth II. She's told everybody this twice at the UN General Assembly, very limited, 1956 and 2012. Her only worldwide addresses to all her colonial citizens, where she tells all of you to read the UN Charter of 1945 and follow that to a T. If you read it in its entirety, you're going to learn that there is no more crown. Sovereignty belongs to your nation, and currently that means all of your elected politicians. You elect provincial and territorial kings and queens every 4 years, and that's all there is for the Constitution of Canada. Absolute. Every 4 years you elect a federal party to be in power, and that's who you're sworn to. That's it. That's all the Constitution gives you. The right to vote, the right to create a party, and that's it. Federally or provincially, that's all you get. Those are your only absolute rights constitutionally for you the people or you the First Peoples. And they've done a great job of convincing all First Peoples, don't vote. However, you can never get your freedom if you don't get a party that's going to release you, meaning a party that's going to destroy the crown and do a we the people, settle all outstanding claims, give self-determination, and absolutely self-government. Until that's done, you are going to remain on what they say is 8% of Canada, and all Canadians are going to remain on what is 11% of Canada, and 79% sits there that neither's allowed to have. Now, you have rights to go enjoy it, but you can't live there. It belongs to the politicians, the first-class citizens, and not to any of you. Now, we can settle all that for everybody. 500 times more of the land than all First Nations have now. Not all things are equal. When we talk about the 8% that the First Peoples have, First Nations entirety, it's not equal, not even close. In fact, Treaty Indians probably got the least by population. Absolutely the worst deal. The redder you were, the worse deal you got in this confederation. There's the unceded, there's this claims outstanding. There are Métis around Canada who never got settled, and I can prove beyond any reasonable doubt it has nothing to do with the Crown, because William Aberhart of the Social Credit Party in the province of Alberta settled a whopping amount, 1.2 million acres for 5,000 Métis Nation in the province of Alberta. He did that. He fought the Crown. He's only one of two premiers in all of Canada's history to ever fight the Crown. He didn't just fight for that. He fought for the ATB, the only other Crown corporate bank in all of Canada. In fact, there's only two outside of the Bank of Canada and, of course, the Bank of America. That's it. ATB, and North Dakota has one as well, too. That's it. That's it. Out of all the regions and territories, all Mexico included, only Alberta and North Dakota have that. And how did Alberta get it? William Aberhart refused to cede to the Crown, meaning lieutenant governors and governor general. He lost for many years. It took a toll on his life as he fought. He's the only premier to ever settle any First Nations group ever, fairly, more than fairly. And that's Métis Nation. It's why Alberta has the least amount of Crown land in all provinces and territories. There's much Canadians need to learn, and First Nations too. We can go through BC all the way to the Atlantic provinces. In every other narrative, there are so many. There are the British treaties before. There's so much, so many don't know. We're going to be going through that with the CCP, the only party in Canadian history. That's absolute. This is my educational video today. I know a lot of you have already heard it, but for all the new followers and all the new First Peoples, this is the truth. This is backed up, verifiable, and accurate, and you can't find a single world expert across the entire world to dispute my claims. You can't even find a Canadian lawyer to come along and dispute it. In fact, I'm so confident that Facebook won't even take down these videos or tag it as false news. I've been reported by all the mainstream parties hundreds and hundreds of times, and I've only been caught twice lying. And Facebook's given up because they already know I don't lie. I never lie to the people. I'm not a populist. I'm never going to be. But I'm going to build something because I'm a builder and a real one. And you can look that all up on Google. All the new followers. Whatever I say I do or die trying, that's what I do. And in 2019, I ran a majority cast, an impossible feat. Never done in all of Canadian history. In a majority, I did that as a third-class citizen. And I'm going to try and double down and do the 338 for all Canadians, the second and third class, and absolutely all First Peoples in Canada in all their narratives. Never before ever done in Canadian history. And we're going to free everybody. We the people. First Nations, it'll be two nations in one. And for those who say it can't be done, I often prove anything can be done. You get 2 reps in the UN, and if you get a UNSC seat, you can have 2 reps. 1 Canadian, 1 First Nation. That was my promise in 2019. Not such bullshit anymore. I hope Perry Bellegarde turned over my presentation, as that was made public and covered in media in 2019. You can find it all archived. Thank you. That's my video today.